This is KBBF Weekly News.
This is Francisco Lozano with KBBF Weekly News. President Obama delivered his final State of the Union address on Tuesday, January 12. The following are commentaries on some of the key points of his speech.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Everybody, please have a seat. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Vice President, members of Congress, my fellow Americans. Tonight marks the 8th year that I've come here to report on the State of the Union.
An optimist, Obama addressed the nation for the last time, and his speech was aimed to sell to the American people positivity and underscore what he would like to accomplish with the American people on the final year of his presidency, something that is not always translated into action by the Congress. President Obama spoke of some of the proposals for the year ahead and vowed to, quote, keep pushing for Congress on the work that I believe needs to be done, end quote, including fixing the broken immigration system, among other things.
I will keep pushing for progress on the work that I believe still needs to be done, fixing a broken immigration system, protecting our kids from gun violence.
President Obama fell short of calling for immigration reform, something he had promised during his first term. Under his legacy, more undocumented immigrants were deported than during his predecessors. Calling to fix the broken immigration system came amid his deportation of Central American refugees fleeing the violence in the region, many of whom are women and children. The day of the State of the Union address, the House Democrats issued a blistering letter to the president, criticizing him for deporting women and children back to face violence and possible death. The following day, Secretary of State John Kerry announced that the State Department will expand its refugee program to help more people fleeing violence in Central America. No details were given on how the program will work.
We've already reduced student loan payments to 10% of a borrower's income, and that's good. But now we've actually got to cut the cost of college. Providing 2 years of community college at no cost for every responsible student is one of the best ways to do that. And I'm going to keep fighting to get that started this year. It's the right thing to do.
As part of his economic strategy, after underscoring the new record of high school graduation rate of 82%, he spoke of the importance of supporting and recruiting more great teachers, of making college affordable for all Americans, and providing 2 years of community college at no cost to the students. This is of extreme importance as university tuition has soared, creating unprecedented debt for students. More and more students are opting for the 2 years of community college prior to transferring to a university in order to reduce students' loan debt. The president linked a stable economy to a higher education. The president received a standing ovation when he said that, quote, food stamp recipients did not cause the financial crisis. Recklessness in Wall Street did, end quote.
Immigrants aren't the principal reason wages haven't gone up. Those decisions are made in the boardrooms that all too often put quarterly earnings over long-term returns. It's sure not the average family watching tonight that avoids paying taxes through offshore accounts. The point is, I believe that in this new economy, workers and startups and small businesses need more of a voice, not less. The rules should work for them. And I'm not alone in this. This year I plan to lift up the many businesses who figured out that doing right by their workers or their customers or their communities ends up being good for their shareholders. And I want to spread those best practices across America. That's part of a brighter future.
As Americans are being told of many economic growth after the Great Economic Recession, many still have not seen any of the growth in their households. This echoes with the families who lost their jobs, their homes, and their middle class achievement, as many continue to struggle to cope with the high cost of living, housing, and retirement nest lost during the recession. President Obama boldly pointed out that food stamps recipients can't be the economics politics scapegoat that Wall Street will want them to be. Still remains to be seen more accountability and maybe even persecution of some in Wall Street. Regarding foreign policy and economy, the president said that 50 years of isolating Cuba has failed to promote democracy. The president announced last year the reestablishing of the U.S.-Cuba relations, a move that vindicated the Cuban people and their revolution. Latin America's shift in governments leaning more and more to the left welcomed the change. The move, however, comes with mixed signals and double standards in the Obama administration. While he deports Central American refugees, Cuban citizens await in countries such as El Salvador to complete the journey to the U.S. soil, where they will be granted asylum once they set foot in the U.S. This double standard echoes the Reagan administration during the 80s and 90s, when his administration was granting political asylum to freedom fighters from the Nicaraguan Contra Revolution, while it denied asylum to Salvadoran and Guatemalans fleeing the death squads of the Salvadoran right-wing government, who were militarily and economically supported by the Reagan administration.
Let me give you another example. 50 years of isolating Cuba had failed to promote democracy. It set us back in Latin America. That's why we restored diplomatic relations, opened the door to travel and commerce, positioned ourselves to improve the lives of the Cuban people. So if you want to consolidate our leadership and credibility in the hemisphere, recognize that the Cold War is over. Lift the embargo.
The world longs for the lifting of the Cuban embargo that was set in place to create economic stability, with the hope that the Cuban people will get fed up and rise against Fidel Castro's revolution after failed attempts from the CIA to overthrow Castro, such as the Bay of Pigs invasion. As the world hails the restoration of the diplomatic relations and the lifting of the embargo, the change came about from the influence of Pope Francis, a move that many question as the fine line between separation of church and state gets blurred. Castro overcoming the embargo is a testimony to the world of a resilient people who valued the quality of education and many other social changes that the revolution brought about in spite of the U.S. propaganda against the island. Many argue that Cuba has a bad record of human rights abuses. Let me remind you that Mexico is far more dangerous country right now when it comes to human rights abuses. But because Mexico is an ally of the U.S., the current state of atrocities is downplayed by the U.S. administrations, including, and without exception, the Obama administration. The president also called for the closure of the controversial Guantanamo Bay prison. Changes come about by we, the people. As all of us do our part in shaping the history and future of the world, let us do our part. This is Francisco Lozano.
KBBF Weekly News is produced by Francisco Lozano, Edgar Avila, and the KBBF volunteers. Our live broadcast is every Friday at 11:30 a.m. on KBBF 89.1 FM all over Northern California.